inflation is starting to get in the same levels as Bitcoin crashes. So that's interesting, right? So back in the day, inflation is like 2-3%, and Bitcoin crashes like 35-40%. Now inflation is like 15-20%, Bitcoin crashes 30%. We're getting into similar levels here, but thing is, inflation only goes one way, right? Whereas Bitcoin goes down, it goes back up, it goes down, it goes. Inflation just goes up. When's the last time you saw inflation go down?
We put up a short on YouTube, right? And we said, listen, it's always a good time to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a good thing because fiat currencies, inflation, it's gonna suck. And this was his response. He says, because crypto, first of all, we're a Bitcoin channel, not a crypto channel, but whatever. Because crypto is way more stable than actual money. Oh, wait, it's not. Then why the heck are we talking about it? People complain about 5% inflation rates, but crypto value can flux almost entirely due to demand. Government money isn't perfect, but it's better than the alternative. Heck, society needs taxes to function. How the heck do you think government is going to tax crypto? Before you guys say anything, it's not. Okay, anyways. Francis, Phil?
I mean, I'll go first because I'm sure that my answer is going to be a lot shorter and like definitely not as like in depth as Francis's. Okay, so look, there's just a lot of things wrong with that statement. But the implication that if we live on a Bitcoin standard, that governments can't still exist and provide value to a system, that's a false notion. Because if there's an incentive for a group of people to come together and create a viable service that not only provides that value to the users of it, but to the people who enforce it, and everybody agrees on it, that's commerce. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This idea that if the Bitcoin world comes into play, I'm sorry, I'm not mentioning crypto, okay? But this idea that if the Bitcoin world comes into play, all of the gears of society stop working, this is completely insane, okay? The other little piece that I want to make is that Bitcoin is an emerging technology. It's 13 years old. As of right now, if we're looking at the numbers, if we have to drag numbers into this, Bitcoin is averaging 200%, I guess you'd say, growth annually, okay, over its lifespan. So what's happening is the story of adoption. We are seeing Bitcoin swallow the world's value slowly but surely at this point, but soon it's going to be very quick. So don't get me wrong. I understand that we are still living in a fiat world, so to speak, because the majority of people are not awake to the fact that the value isn't being stored in our money. That's the other piece that he's missing. He seems to think that, quote unquote, Bitcoin is unstable. He's not paying attention to the fact that he's lost over 99% of his purchasing power. He's not paying attention to the fact that while I'm talking, all of our fiat money is losing value. And the other piece that I wanted to make is that it's not, the money printing is a huge aspect, but also, unfortunately, there's human beings involved, and human beings need to have faith. And the money printing and the faith, I think, do go hand in hand. So I think that both of these are essentially equaling what is the downfall. But to my point, again, Bitcoin is not as bad as the controlled centralized fiat system, and you need to do more research, bud.
I agree, and this is why we cover these. Francis, back to you, but I'm going to read the last part of the comment just to make it more spicy. He says, society needs taxes to function. How the heck do you think government is going to tax crypto?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the point, isn't it? But so the government can definitely tax Bitcoin currently, and they do so by asking people to hand over their fucking bank statements and their exchange balances and so on and so forth. It does make it significantly harder. So as a Bitcoiner, you can think of yourself as not being the low-hanging fruits for the tax man. You're a higher hanging fruit. It's not impossible to tax a Bitcoiner. It just makes it more difficult. You cannot seize Bitcoin if you refuse. Right? That's a huge component. In contrary to government money, if you don't pay your taxes and you have a bank account in the country where you're supposed to be taxes, they'll eventually just seize it. Whereas if you have Bitcoin, they might put you under arrest and ask you, where's the money? Where's the Bitcoins? And then there's all sorts of options that you have. If you want to contest your tax burden, for example, you say, well, at least you can remain in control of your funds if you're a Bitcoin holder. But I believe in what Phil said, that there will always be some kind of government. We just have to rethink what we have in mind when we think about government. I will be a government for fucking sure. When I have my compound, my condo association, essentially my citadel, we will have some rules, right? There will be some rules for you to join. There will be a constitution that you will have to sign that will limit some of your behaviors. And there will be a tax imposed. You can call it a condo fee. You can call it a membership fee. It's still some kind of tax. And And that will go towards paying for the bunker, for the common bunker. That will go towards the armed guards. It will go towards the road and the infrastructure and the electricity, the internet, maybe the emergency evac service that we share, maybe some common insurance. We're just going to have decentralized competitive government. And if my Citadel group is and I'm going to be working fucking hard for your money. I mean, because I know that I can't do shit if you don't pay me. I mean, yeah, I can, be like, I can force you to leave, which governments don't do. Normal governments, they don't force you to leave when you pay your taxes. They force you to stay. It's a huge difference. If you don't pay your taxes on my property, maybe there's gonna be some rule. There's gonna be some arrangement. I don't know. We're gonna come together in some way. Some people will decide to live off the grid, but there's just a simple fact that we need to have cooperative, and I think we can call them businesses as well. I mean, governing businesses or resource management businesses for a bunch of people on a geographical location. So I think that's definitely the way. And I think a resource for people to read on this is the book, The Sovereign Individual. It talks a lot about this concept of not only the sound censorship resistant money, but the private communications and 3D printed, 3D manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. It's going to make it a lot. It's going to increase the cost of violence on individuals, and taxation is violence. So it's going to make it a very competitive business. And then you're going to have jurisdictions or little splinter groups like my Citadel that are doing arbitrage with each other. If we see that someone else's Citadel is taxing people and offering a shit deal, well, from our point of view, these are clients waiting to be picked up, and we're going to, reduce our rates and increase our services. And regarding the volatility, I mean, the guy is not exactly wrong, about the price volatility. When Bitcoin goes from like 60K to 30K, it's like, oh, store of value, big deal, 50%. Obviously, if you look at the chart not everybody got in early. So some people are currently suffering, and in their current frame of mind, I totally get it. When I got into Bitcoin, it was like halfway through 2013, something like that. And then I kind of like rode that first wave up really quickly. I get into Bitcoin and then it fucking goes up from 100 to 1,000. I think I'm a fucking genius. And then I have a year and a half of Bitcoin slowly going from 1,000, 100 down to like $200. So it dropped like 85% over 2 years. So it doesn't seem like a really good store of value. But I look back on that period of my life now. So not to be too cliche, but just lower your time preference. That's it. We don't, there's a lot of things that we don't see. Inflation being like 15, 20%. Inflation is starting to get in the same levels as Bitcoin crashes. So that's interesting, right? So back in the day, inflation is like 2, 3% and Bitcoin crashes like 35, 40%. Now inflation is like 15, 20%. Bitcoin crashes 30%. We're getting into similar levels here. But thing is, inflation only goes one way, right? Whereas Bitcoin goes down, it goes back up, it goes down, it goes. Inflation just goes up. When's the last time you saw inflation go down? I mean, maybe historically a little bit, but not significantly. I mean, the rate of inflation has decreased, but everything is fucking more expensive generally.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. Could not have said it better myself. Bitcoin gives you the power to not only vote with your wallet, but also your free, and that is going to change the relationships between governments and its citizens.